Hey everybody, Chuck here. This section we're going to look at the area of providing training. It's during the execution part, um, because it is part of execution, of course. We always talk about doing training ahead of time. So you might find yourself saying, well, why aren't we doing training earlier on? One of the benefits or challenges of training is finding the right time to do the training. And the closer to the point of actual need of use is an ideal situation here. So it's typically going to happen during the execution part of the transformation. So that's the area we're going to look at here. And again, opinion piece, helping myself study. Hopefully it supports your learning. And of course, we're not using any of the ASCM PowerPoints in the process here. So let's talk a bit about the training here then. There's really a couple major categories to training here that we want to look at. One of them is the development of job descriptions. A second part is the needs assessment. Third part, of course, is implementing the training. And then there's the pre and post test evaluations that have to go on in the process here. So let's dive in and kind of talk about those. So looking first, development of job descriptions as a preamble, if you want to call it, to delivering the training here. These job definitions, because we're forward looking, we want these to reflect the to be capabilities, not where we are today. So we specify the skills, the experiences, the competencies that will be needed in the future state. So in the definition of the job, we've got to have in there specific skills, specific experiences. We need to craft the job roles so that everybody understands what those tasks, skills, and experiences are. One of the challenges, if we're not careful, is we develop those definitions based on the current person who's occupying that role. And yet, if you think about it, and we're not saying the current person cannot do it, but we need to step away from who that person is to define and say, look, for this job, this is what the skills and tasks and abilities need to be for this job. And then we can look at, who the current person is. Do we have enough time to develop the skills to move them to the new position? But again, we don't want to get in that trap of looking at the current occupant of the roles. Another thing also that should be part of that job definition is specifying responsibilities, accountabilities, consultative requirements that they apply, any informing requirements that may be necessary that this person does. So it should be more than just the actual task itself that's out there. So in this second part now, the training needs assessment. We need to determine the skill and experience gaps in the staff, so that that we can work towards meeting those specific skills or the higher skills that someone might need. So we have to evaluate, what have you got now? Where do we need to be? Here's what we've got to train to get you moved over to that area. But we also need to evaluate, can the staff or the person acquire and learn those skills within an acceptable amount of time. And we're not saying a person cannot do it, but if we've got a job need within 30 days and it's a 6-month program, that's a different situation than perhaps the individual who can pick up the skills in a week and we don't need it for another month. So we're not saying the person is not capable, but we do have to recognize and look at the timing part of things. Okay. Recognize also that this assessment is probably going to occur a couple times during the project. For sure, when we're staffing the transformation teams, we want to have a needs assessment done, because if we have folks who are not qualified, that's going to be a red flag for a failure of the project. We also need to do a needs assessment for the to-be roles during the ongoing operations. So can the person get up to that level of doing the job once it's transformed into the new position? And can they sustain the change as well? So there's going to be additional skills needed organizationally in addition to the tasks of planning, scheduling, sourcing, or whatever. So we have to recognize these training programs are designed to close the gaps from the results of the needs analysis. Third section, implementation of the training programs. Okay, as we just mentioned, training programs are designed to close the gaps. Experiential learning, it can be one type of program. So there's training simulations out there. It's also probable, something you should not forget in this implementing a training is the person who's going to lead the group going through the training, not the trainer or the facilitator themselves, but if it's 10 people from a sourcing department going through it, let's say, whatever the training is, we want to recognize as well. So there's probably going to be a departmental or a group leader within those 10 people. And if we're going to leverage and connect the training to what we do, chances are that that leader in that group of 10 is probably going to have to go through some training in advance of the whole group so that they can be ready and prepared to connect the dots, so to speak, and help people, put the whole thing together there. Last part of training, pre and post training. The pre-training is we're looking at what people can do now. Post-training evaluation, we're looking at maybe degree of improvement, adoption rates of new systems, adoption of new processes, new rules. How many folks, whether it's number, percentage, whatever, are taking on and using successfully the new forms of training or work that we're applying. So these 4 areas become an important part of everything that we do within delivering the training there.